Over 1 million teachers use IXL in their classrooms every day for one reason. They love it. The gold standard teaching and learning solution, IXL provides thousands of instructional resources, actionable analytics, and assessments to increase teacher capacity and effectiveness. IXL takes the guesswork out of lesson planning with ready made plans. Built in engagement tools such as customizable competitions make learning fun for students. Dr. Trujillo, superintendent at Tuscan Unified School District, says this about IXL, quote, "For the teacher, IXL opens up the door to be a lot more effective and provide more differentiated instruction to the different subgroups of students in their class." End quote. Empower your teachers with the tools and insights they need to enhance instruction, all in one single, easy to use platform. Get started today at IXL.com.
You're listening to Monday Matters, a Principal Matters podcast production.
Hi, friends. This is Will Parker back with my co host, Dr. Jen Schwanke, for another Monday Matters. Jen, this is going to be coming out in the middle of February, probably right after or around Valentine's Day. But recently, my wife and I, my Valentine and I, we got to travel down to Pensacola, Florida for a wonderful milestone. My nephew, Stephen, was graduating as a flight officer from the Naval Aviation Academy down there. So I wanted to just talk about that with you today because it was a neat moment of being in this wonderful National Aviation Museum, planes hanging from the ceiling in every direction and flags flying and all of the officers and their families seated in the crowd with this stage full of men in their uniforms and stripes. And there was an admiral who stood up during the ceremony to just give a speech on behalf of the U.S. Navy. He had traveled from Washington, D.C. from his post there. And I couldn't help it. I was taking mental notes because he had a 3-point speech that he was giving. And I couldn't wait to share this later with Principal Matters listeners, but also you, because I was thinking, man, this sounds familiar. So I'm just going to share the 3 things that he shared in that. 1, know your mission. 2, be decisive. And 3, invest in your people. Now, he was applying this, of course, to the mission and work that these young men and women had done, preparing to fly planes into battle or into combat or into exercises, and just the importance of all of that work they had done ahead of time to understand the work and to know exactly what the targets were and the mission were that they were being given, but also the importance of in the moment making those hard, quick decisions so that people had the confidence that the right thing is happening. But then I also loved it that he followed up with the people part, which is if you're not investing in knowing and building relationships with the people with whom you're serving, you're going to erode trust. And so I just wanted to bring that first. I've got some other thoughts on this, but I wanted to start there because I immediately just started thinking, I know principals aren't combat soldiers, but this sure sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Well, I think about so much of what we talk about in this podcast are these 3 things, right? Know your mission. What are you doing? What's your goals? Where are you going with leading this building? And then be decisive. So many people need that from their leader. They need to know that decisions will be made and they will be, can be traced back to a thoughtful and caring leader. And then invest in your people. This makes me think about a conversation I had with my son not too long ago. He had parallel parked and he got too close to this other car. And I'm like, he goes, whatever, I'm never gonna see that guy. And it was funny. We've all said that. I'm never gonna see that person again. But the way we think about people that we do see every day, that we're accountable to, that we care about, is a lot different from the guy we maybe park a little bit too close to, right? And that's why it is important. You never want, as a leader, anyone to say, whatever, I don't care what she thinks, or whatever, he doesn't care about me anyway. It should be the exact opposite. Like, I'm going to figuratively straighten out my car because this other guy matters.
Yeah, I've heard other leaders say before that the measure of your integrity is what you do when no one else is looking.
Yeah.
And that's confronting for me too, because there are times that I think the same thing when I'm in a crowd or on a plane or stuck in an airport.
Right.
This person probably never see me again, but you know what? That moment still matters.
Right.
Yeah, I want to come back to each of these and park on each one for just a minute, Jen, because I want this thought partnership to be helpful for principal matters leaders. But I don't know about you, everybody's different, but I know for me, for years and years, when I was serving in the role of assistant principal and principal, when I would get out of my car in the morning, there was always this moment of pause before I would step into the building of that, you're just like, here it comes. You know it's coming. And sometimes in my better days, I would kind of rehearse in my mind, why am I getting ready to step in this building? And if I was honest, some of the days my thoughts were, because I want there not to be chaos, because I want there not to be conflict today. And I want to just try to stop as much craziness as I can and make sure that kids behave and teachers have what they need. And then I would reset on my better days and go, yeah, but why am I really stepping into this building? And I would just remind myself, my responsibility here is to find difficult situations and try to come up with a solution, to try to repair relationships when they're broken and need to be restored, to try to redeem the time that we have so this is the most flourishing, vibrant, healthy environment that students can experience. And so that reset was my way of kind of redefining my mission. And so I just want to say that to leaders, because I know sometimes, especially this time of the year, you're just dreaming of spring break. You can't wait for the end of the school year, and that's to be expected. But I think sometimes returning to that mission can help us be grounded again. What's helpful for you, Jen, when you need to get grounded again in your mission?
Well, this is going to circle around to number 3 prematurely, but the people, I love the people I work with. I love them. And when I think we all have days where we're like, I can't do this one more minute. I'm not doing this. And then I'm like, yeah, but what about my colleagues? What about my team? That really does help bring me back.
Well, I also want to talk about decisiveness, because I have grown to really respect leaders who are willing to put up their hand and say, give me a moment before we make a decision, because there's some wisdom in taking time to really digest a hard situation. But there's also a danger when a decision needs to be made if a leader's not decisive. So I don't want to run the risk of anyone thinking that they should be rash or impulsive. But decisiveness is the ability to analyze the variables in front of you, consider the options, and then make a choice and live with it. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go back later and reflect and decide, was that the best choice in the moment? But I think that people are looking to leaders often for that final decision maker. And that, I call it the wearing the hat of the coach. Somebody has to make the final decision, coach. Call it. And so, I just want to encourage people, because sometimes I think there's this pressure, and maybe we even translate this sometimes when we're encouraging teamwork. But I just want to say it out loud. Sometimes there's this pressure to try to get everyone to buy in. And agreement and collaboration are important, but the goal should never be 100% buy-in, because you'll never get there. The goal should be strong decisions that are based upon the right outcomes for the people in front of you. And if people don't like you because of that in the process, that comes with the territory of leadership. And so, Jen, I was thinking about this situation, and I can't really talk about this in too much detail because it would probably divulge confidentiality. But one day when I was a principal, I was standing in my school with our security personnel at the time. And this was an officer who was assigned to our school. And we had a situation that came to our attention that there might be a threat on campus. So we went and did a quick look on video. We thought we saw something that we needed to address, and we had a decision to make. And so we quickly went to that situation, isolated a specific student, made sure everything was safe. We had to do follow through with parents and all the things that come with situations like that. But when I looked back later, I remembered like second guessing myself so many times. I could have done this differently. I could have done this differently. There could have been this protocol that we followed. And all of those things are probably still true. But the most important thing in that situation was to move, to make a decision and move, and then ensure the safety of your students. But even to this day, and all the years later, when I step away from a lot of decisions I've made as a leader, I still don't know if I was 100% correct in the way I responded. I just know in that situation, people needed confidence, clarity, stability and safety. And so I just want to say that out loud because you're never going to do it perfectly, but I think it's important for people to feel that sense that someone's making the call, and usually that's going to be you.
Well, and like you said, we can't confuse decisiveness with impulsiveness or speed or, um, you know, even confidence, really. Decisiveness is being comfortable with everyone looking at us and saying, okay, what's the call, coach? That's what decisiveness is.
When you think about your years, because you've worked across the spectrum, but in elementary, especially, and because I was such a secondary guy and you're an elementary person too, um, I don't know. Do you discern a difference in those settings?
Well, it's people forget that I spent 15 years at the middle school level. And
Right.
so I moving to elementary, yes, I spent the first year saying, what is going on here? Right? Because yes, it's the way you make decisions might not necessarily be different, but certainly the input you need to get, the perspectives you need to gather, and the way you deliver the information. Absolutely. Because I will stand here and say, people will disagree with me, but I will stand here and say elementary parents are different. um Elementary teachers are different, not different bad. They just they work in a different setting, so their minds are in a different place than their middle and high school colleagues. I would even say that middle school is different than high school, now that I know a lot more about high school. They're all different, and there's this great phrase that I do believe, and it's we are what we teach, meaning, we kind of absorb the mindsets and the speed and the expectations around us. And so the critical thing, and we sound like broken records here, is knowing the people,
Mm-hmm.
knowing the community, and knowing how decision making will be perceived. And for anybody who's new in their job, I would say it takes time. I just talked to an assistant principal a couple of weeks ago, and she said, for year 4, and I finally feel like I know these people. It takes time.
Yeah.
It really does.
Well, that's one of the reasons I asked that question, Jen, is because in that third category, invest in your people,
Hmm.
relationship building is going to look different from place to place. I'd work with
True.
leaders who lead very small schools with a staff they can wrap their arms around. I lead other leaders who have 2,000 students and staff so big they have to split up the time that who gets to talk to which teachers because it's never clear who they're going to get to see in a week. And so, relationship building is going to look different from place to place, but the essentials are the same. People want to
Right.
know that you know them as a person, you care about them, that you care about their family, that you care about their hobbies, that you take the time to get to know the people in your building beyond just your office. Or if you're in a large campus, really any size campus, um, everyone matters, your staff, your teachers, your cafeteria workers, your counselors, including your parents and students. But I just think there's no better investment in those first two categories of knowing your mission and being decisive than that third category, which is really investing in your people so that at the end of the day, they trust you, even if they don't always agree with you. They trust you and respect you as you're moving forward. Um,
Absolutely.
Jen, as I was standing there watching our nephew get his wings pinned onto his uniform and his wife and 3 children there hugging up on him for the photos they were taking, I was just thinking about how hard it is to achieve that kind of level in the military, but I also realized this was just the beginning of the work, because when you graduate into that kind of work, it's just the beginning. And it was just a good reminder to me that even in leadership, we never stop learning. You and I never stop learning in this work. Leaders never stop learning in theirs. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if I've even told you this, I had a student from a university who's working on his undergraduate degree, and he wants to be an educator, and he started listening to our podcast. And so he reached out to me and
Nice.
said, "Hey, I'm already thinking about what happens if I become a principal years from now. And he just wanted advice. And I was just sitting there like blown away that in our audience, we have, new leaders, veteran leaders, but even college students listening in. So it's not a secret formula. It's not a magic formula, But just like that Navy Admiral reminded his new flight officers, I want anyone listening out there to know that to know your mission, be decisive, invest in others. Doesn't make the journey easier, but it certainly leads to better outcomes. So any other
Awesome.
thoughts you want to add to that, Jen, before we wrap up?
No, but I do want to say that I know that we also have a lot of teachers that listen to us. I had someone reach out to me and say, I hear your podcast a lot. I want to listen to principals because I want to understand you people.
Oh, that makes me feel so good.
I did. I said,
yeah.
that's wonderful. And she said, no, it was actually very heartfelt. She said, I don't want to be one of those people that doesn't like my administrator just because they're my administrator. I want to know how they think. And I said, well, Will and I are only two of about, tens of thousands, but thanks for tuning in.
Gosh, well, if there's any teachers listening to this conversation today, thank you for your patience and kindness, and for giving Jen and I an opportunity to speak to you too. Man, Jen, at the end of the day, we're all leaders, and whether that's students, teachers, whatever the title is that you have. Well, Principal Matters listeners, thank you for the time you listened today, because we want to make sure that you're getting value from the time you listen to our shows. Our flagship shows on Wednesday. Check those out for guests that Jen and I continue to have the privilege to interview. And Jen, how can people stay connected with your resources?
Absolutely. Find me at jenschwanke.com. You can use a form there under contact to reach out to me, or subscribe to my Tuesday newsletter there.
That's right. You better sign up for that newsletter, Principal Problems by Jen Schwanke. You will not be disappointed. Well, until next time, thank you for listening and for doing what matters. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Monday Matters.